Whilst Josh is looking, my point is now this. We've confirmed that someone can be a virgin and an Alma because Genesis has confirmed to us that this can happen. So now, if we go to Isaiah 7:14, he is now trying to rule out that if you're an Alma, you can't be a virgin.
No. Don't put words in my mouth. You just said that this other verse doesn't call her a virgin.
Okay.
You say that an Alma can't be a virgin.
But that's my point.
You're using Cain's argument. This is nonsense. This is utter nonsense.
What I'm going to show you now
it can be a virgin, therefore it is a virgin. Nonsense.
So if the possibility is, it can be, because what he's going to say, in the Septuagint, it uses the word Parthenos. Now here's the Septuagint, and in that verse, for what you've just stated, it uses Parthenos for all three ones. Yes. So therefore
that's written in Greek, correct?
Who was it written by?
It was written by in Greek, correct?
Yes.
It's in Greek,
this is a
the
Christian
same word,
translation.
for girl and virgin, they're the same word. In Greek, you are a girl until you lose your virginity.
And who was the Septuagint written by?
Are you talking about the
70?
Are you talking about the Septuagint in antiquity? Are you talking about the Septuagint we have today?
The Septuagint.
Because this is not debated amongst scholars. If you look on Wikipedia, you can see this
Who
is true.
was it written by?
The Septuagint that we currently have is written by Christians.
Who we have the Isaiah
Nothing to do with the original
scrolls.
Septuagint.
So I'm asking you, like,
The Septuagint we have today was written by Christians.
who wrote the Septuagint originally?
What was the original Septuagint?
Yes.
Or this Septuagint?
Just semantics. Let's
No,
start with the
that's
beginning.
not semantics.
Let's
that's
start
the
with the
whole
beginning.
argument you're about to make. I'm undermining the entire argument you want to make, and you're very annoyed.
Answer the question.
That's why you're avoiding
who was
this.
the Septuagint written by?
Just answer both.
Well, I'll answer both. The
Right.
first Septuagint was written by 70 rabbis. Don't cut me
Okay.
off. Don't cut me off, Ali.
No, but I was asking you a question.
And the
I
last
wanted
one,
you to answer.
and the current one we have is not written by Jews. It was written by Christians.
Now, this is the thing. He said the current Septuagint is written by Christians, but Matthew was written in the 1st century. So Matthew could not have been using the Septuagint written by Christians.
Exactly.
So therefore, the point is,
Matthew is wrong. The book of Matthew is wrong. It was
He's
written
now
by...
refuted his own point because he has agreed that the original Septuagint was written by the 70. Matthew quotes from the Septuagint written by the 70.
He does not quote from the Septuagint.
Yes, he does.
No, he doesn't.
Because Matthew quotes from the Greek. Or if you look, any scholar will tell you, most of the biblical statements are taken from the Septuagint.
The whole book is written in Greek.
And
all the Gospels and the Epistles are written in Greek.
Because the structure of the sentences are different from the Masoretic text. So therefore, when a scholar looks at the Greek, they can see where they got the constructs from because the construct of the sentence matches the Septuagint. So therefore, even if we listen to your argument, you try to then say the Septuagint was written by the Christians. But the book of Matthew came before the Septuagint by the Christians. So therefore, the only thing he could have been quoting from is the Septuagint written by the 70.
Well, that's not true, because the Septuagint written by the 70 we know was only on the 5 books of Moses and not on the prophets or writings, and therefore there was no Septuagint on Isaiah at that time.
Again, you're mistaken, because I don't have the evidence on me, but
of course not.
The Septuagint, there were more books that were written gradually over time before the time of Christ. This is why Christians bring up this whole point of it referring to a virgin, but then Jews refer to this Masoretic and the Hebrew to say, well, it says Alma. But if you look at the writings of many of the quotations from Matthew, because he was obviously a Jew and
Matthew did not write the book of Matthew.
He was writing. We're not going to go on a tangent, but again, the book of Matthew is written to a Jewish audience, so he actually uses more verses from the Old Testament, and he uses the Greek Septuagint for those verses, and scholars will confirm to you because why? They look at the structure of how he quoted things, and the majority of what he says was taken from the Septuagint.
Let me ask you a very simple question that you should be...
Quick question about this. You're saying the Septuagint was written by Christians, the one that we've got now?
Yes.
I find that a little bit strange, because in Isaiah 9, the section where it goes, he'll be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, that isn't in the Septuagint. Why would a Christian...
We're not talking about Isaiah 9, we're talking about Isaiah 7.
But I'm saying in the Septuagint, that passage of the Septuagint doesn't have...
Yes, but that's also been, that's been mistranslated.
Miss that bit out, because that seems a little bit...
Well, it's quite simple really, because that verse has been mistranslated.
But why would a Christian...
Why would they mistranslate a verse? Because they've got...
No, I'm saying why would a Christian mistranslate it in a way that seems to not back up the Christian theology.
No, it mistranslates it in a way that does.
No, I'm saying they miss out the bit that says it's the mighty God in the Septuagint, whereas in the Masoretic text it actually does have.
Because they're not quoting from the Septuagint. That's my whole point.
Okay, so
My whole point is they're not quoting from the Septuagint.
but Josh doesn't know. He needs to read up. He needs to read up.
Look,
Josh
this is
needs to
very
read
clear.
up on his history because
this is very clear. This is
Yes.
look. I have a very simple question for you. If you were writing the book of Matthew, okay, and you wanted to convince Jews of Jesus being the Messiah, and by doing so you wanted to prove that, you wanted to show that he. You're not listening to a word I'm saying. And by doing
we'll
so,
wrap up soon anyway.
and by doing so, you wanted to, in order to do so, you wanted to quote verses, okay, showing how Jesus fulfilled this prophecy and that prophecy. What would you quote from? Would you quote from?
Hold on. Isaiah.
No, I'm sticking to Isaiah. Would you quote from a translation or the original? Would you okay, now this is something that you know from a court of law, okay? We have a very important principle in law, that the original text is always...
I'm advising you here, trying to help out, trying to keep you safe. I don't want groups bigger than 6, alright?
The original text is always what we consider instead of the translation, because a translation by nature is a commentary, because when you translate between different languages, things obviously are going to get lost, because different languages have different ways of saying things. Now, therefore, there's no reason to suggest that whoever wrote the Gospel of Matthew, and I highly doubt it was Matthew himself, whoever wrote that book, who was writing to try to convince Jews, would have decided to quote verses using a translation instead of the original Hebrew. That makes no sense. Why would somebody do that?
Well, it is very clear why they would do that. In the first century, did they use the Targums or the Hebrew Bible?
Well, they used both.
Okay. Did a majority of the Israelites speak Hebrew in the first century?
Well, the majority, I don't know statistics. I don't know. There wasn't a census
Did it
done.
become a lost language?
Well, at that point, it probably was not a lost language. No.
So everyone spoke, because even if you go to scholarly consensus, they'll say most people spoke Aramaic.
Yes, not Greek.
Yes. No, they would have understood Aramaic, Greek as well, because
only the Hellenized Jews would have understood Greek.
Right. So my point is this. This is why people would have understood the Septuagint as well, because it was translated by Jews. Why? Because as it became part of the kind of Greek Empire and so forth, therefore we had...
Your conversation, the speaking area is now closed.
Okay.
You wish to carry on, you can go to Marble Arch or whatever, but this area has to be cleared now.
Okay.
Safe journeys.
Right, should we wrap up?
Yeah, we'll wrap up.
We'll have to wrap up. I'll have to continue after lockdown. It's just...
Yeah, we'll do a conclusion outside.
All right, we're going to do a conclusion outside.
Amen. It will do a conclusion outside.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah, maybe we can do an online, continue online or something.
All right.
Yeah, okay.
We'll take this outside, man. We'll take this
Let's take it
outside.
outside. Yeah.
Can you hold this?
They're actually closing the whole park,
Yeah.
including the
But that's why
Kensington Gardens.
I wanted to time it
apparently
because
so.
sometimes you like, yeah. Don't worry, next time we'll do it all park, isn't it?
I don't know how to do that. I've never used Stream. I don't know how to do that.
Right, so it's not
Maybe my sister's more into
use the camera,
my
so,
sister's more into these technological things. I'm sure she explained to me how the camera works in the first place, so she can probably help me out.
They're closing early, you said 6, but... No, it's 6. Yeah, but today is 4:30. That's
What's your name, Josh?
Yeah.
What's the name of your YouTube channel?
Jews at the corner.
Jews at the corner.
Yeah.
Did you see one? I've seen you.
Yeah. No, only your camera, only the recording.
The last one.
Sorry?
Sorry, I'm just explaining.
No.
I've seen you on the Soko channel.
Yeah.
Paperboy.
Yeah.
I know you're paying 2 minutes.
Still recording, I told me.
I don't know, is it still recording?
Yeah, it is.
If it is, then you've got a scene of that guy yelling peace and love. You can edit that as you want.
Yeah, I probably will.
So Josh, we'll conclude, but we just do 3 minutes. We'll time it because we...
All right, then.
So it's not
Well, they're locking
over.
the gates.
Yeah.
When did they start doing this, locking the gates?
Well, royal parks are usually closed at night.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're probably closing early for COVID.
These unsuspecting people have come into the park not knowing that they're about to be kicked out.
They didn't do that last week.
They did this last week.
When I went for my walk and I came back, that was after night.
You are the Messiah. King of kings.
Can you...
Is it still recording?
Yeah.
Do you have can you just do a quick time?
Your turban.
You on your phone or something?
Okay.
All right then. 3 minutes for you and then 3 minutes for me.
Yeah.
Where's the mic? Who's got the mic? All right, cool. Put it here.
Yeah, but can't it pick up both of us?
Yeah, but because it's... Look, you start your 2 minutes, and then
I'm not
Yeah.
pass it
allowed.
over to him when it's 2
Okay.
minutes. Yeah? All right, 2 minutes.
Yeah. Can someone just
2 or 3 minutes.
3 minutes?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, stars. Now.
Okay, so we've moved outside because we've been moved by the police. Now, basically what I was saying is that Matthew generally quotes from the Septuagint, which is the Greek, and anyone can go online and search that. So this is why there were certain things, or it was translated in Greek as Parthenos. So what Joshua was trying to say, he had different points. One, that Alma doesn't necessarily mean virgin, but obviously we went to Genesis 24, which shows there was 3 different words used for Rebecca, and one of them was virgin. So we have to think about the context of that time. People who were generally of that age were generally a virgin. So yes, Isaiah doesn't necessarily specifically mean Alma means virgin, but in the context of that time, it would have been perceived as a virgin. Just like if I say to someone an adolescent, they would also be seen as a virgin till like today, where it may not necessarily be true. Also, what Joshua will try and argue is that the structure of the sentence is past in the past tense. But Josh also knows you have something called is it the Vav conditional conversive, where in biblical Hebrew there is no such thing as past tense as we have in modern Hebrew. So when we look at the verses, there is something what we would describe as the prophetic tense. And if Josh can quickly go to Numbers, no, actually in Exodus, it talks about, you don't need to look at it, I'll find it, but it talks about, the Lord says to Moses, this day I have set you free. But the Exodus had not happened yet. So what we see many times in prophetic statements is that they can be spoken about in the past tense, and I'll try and find the verse for you and we can have a look at it.
Okay, so in response,
Let me start
in response to what Paperboy has said, is this the end? Are we concluding now?
No, we'll just do a few more. One thing I want to...
Oh, okay, fine. So, in response to what Paperboy has said, first of all, the rabbis never made a Septuagint on the prophets, as I said before. Matthew was not quoting from a Septuagint, and there's no reason to quote from a translation when you can quote from the original, obviously. And furthermore, the verse in question, which Paperboy is talking about in Exodus, is not talking about a prophecy. This is not saying he doesn't mean I will set you free. When God says I have set you free, it means, and God does this a lot, it means that I have done it. It's as good as it means it's as good as done, because God's word, God always fulfills His word, and therefore, whenever God says I have done something, okay, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's actually happened already. It means it's as good as done. Another explanation, not that one is necessary, is that of course God is above time, and therefore, whenever God is looking upon something, it can have happened, it can not have happened. Right? He's above time. He sees all the events of time, past, present, and future, all at once, because He is God, obviously. And what else did you say? Oh yeah, of course. If we go to Proverbs chapter 30, we see very clearly that Alma there is not talking about a virgin. So So Paperboy's assertion that just because by Rebecca it uses all three words to refer to her, and one of them is a virgin and one of them is Almor, does not mean that Almor means virgin.
So,
2 minutes.
okay. Yeah, I'll switch it over.
That was 2 minutes 59. I was given 3
Yeah.
minutes. That was
So now again, Josh is confirming what I've been saying, and I'm gonna go into another point. So he just said that God speaks
We're
in.
gonna have to wrap up. We're running out of battery.
Okay.
Although I did
We'll do-
believe I had to order
So
another battery.
Josh said that God is outside of space and time. So therefore he can talk about something in the past because it's already done. That's why we say it's a prophecy. So even though I have confirmed that there is no wav consecutive, so there is no such thing as a true past tense in the biblical text. Even if you go to the 1970 JPS, it says the virgin shall conceive, but they have now revised it to say she has conceived. Because if you look at the rest of the sentence, it speaks of the father naming the child in the future tense. Now, this is the thing. If it is a prophecy, what Josh said can still apply. That God knows it's already done, even if it's something to happen in the future, because God does not is not constrained by space and time. So Josh has not actually refuted my point. He's actually helped my point. So,
Can I come back on that?
yes, you may.
All right then. Well, this is just absurd because the word has conceived in Isaiah 7:14 does not have a vav conversive. There is no vav conversive there. It is in the pluperfect. It says the word hora, which means has conceived. It has no vav conversive. The idea that there's no real past tense in biblical Hebrew is nonsense, because whenever you don't have a vav conversive and it's using what's known as the perfect form or the perfect tense, that is only past tense, or more accurately, the pluperfect tense, meaning had done already. Okay, there is no time when you find a pluperfect tense word referring to the future. And I might add that the context of Isaiah 7, which I'm sure Paperboy might have read in preparation for this, but most missionaries have never read the whole of Isaiah 7. Isaiah 7 does not talk about the future. Isaiah 7 talks about what's going on then. It's talking about a siege with King Ahaz, right? What happens?
Okay.
King Ahaz, king of Judah, is besieged by the kings of Aram, King Rezin, and the king of Israel, right? That's King Pekach. And Isaiah says to Ahaz, pray to God, he'll give you a sign, the siege will be over. And Ahaz says, no, I don't want to pray to God. So he says, well, we're going to give you a sign anyway. And then he says, what's the sign? Okay, he says the sign is that the young woman, okay, who has conceived. It says horror, as I keep saying. It's in the pluperfect. There's no vav conversive here. It's a lie that there's a vav conversive in this word. It doesn't exist. It's spelled hey, resh, hey, horror. Has conceived, will give birth to a son. You should call him Emmanuel, which means God is with us. Okay, it's perfectly normal to have names in Hebrew that mention God in it. It doesn't make the person divine, like, for example, Daniel or Michael or Gabriel. They all got God in the name. And what's the sign about this? That by the time this child, Emmanuel, before this child, Emmanuel, is able to tell the difference between good and evil, the siege will have lifted. Well, let me tell you something. If this really is talking about Jesus, that's a mighty long siege.
Okay, so now, Josh was talking about the tense used in the Isaiah 7:14. Can you open your Tanakh?
Of course.
Does it have the word Yoledet?
Yeah, that's a...
What tense is that?
That's a participle, the present tense.
Present tense. So
Yes.
you have past tense, now the present tense.
Yes.
And also the word cool. What tense is that?
Let's get it up. That's in the future, I know that.
So now you're saying you have past, present and future, but you
in
want
the
us
same
to
verse.
believe that it's something that has happened in the
But
past.
the conception has happened in the past because that's the verse. That's the verb which is in the past.
But that's the thing. Using it in conjunction, the past perfect, that is why if you look at the JPS 1917, they put the she shall conceive, because when you look at the whole structure of the sentence, because you have the past, present, and that's why I said you don't have something as a proper past tense. So when you have she is given, the tense is almost she is given birth, but then he will call in the future. So this is why I've said.
No.
Okay, so now, tell us the tenses.
Horror is
I
in
just asked the question.
Okay, horror is in the past tense. Horror means has conceived. She has conceived in the past tense. Sorry? There you are.
No timing now.
Okay.
No timing. No timing.
Can you maybe ask somebody else to hold it?
Okay. Yeah. Okay, but
So
let's just,
horror is in the past tense.
Yeah.
Yoledes is a participle. Okay, that's present tense. And v'koros, that has a vav conversive, by the way. That's in the future tense.
okay, but just to kind of quickly get to it, because we've been going on for such a long time.
Yes.
There is one thing I want to conclude on, is that who is Yosef ben David? Or
Yosef ben David.
sorry, the Messiah ben David. Is
Oh,
it?
the Messiah. Oh, you want to talk about Mashiach ben David?
Yeah.
Maybe we should leave that for next time.
Just a
Yeah.
quick one. I want to give a quick introduction on.
Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David.
Yes.
Right. Well, according to rabbinic tradition, there are going to be two messiahs. The first is going to be the Mashiach ben Yosef, and depending on how, on whether or not the Jewish people as a whole are righteous or wicked, he will either be killed or not be killed, and he'll be followed by the Mashiach ben David, who will actually bring the full redemption.
Okay. And just to summarize.
And if the Mashiach ben and according to some opinions, Mashiach ben Yosef will actually be resurrected by Mashiach ben David. And either way, whether he was killed and resurrected or he was never killed at all, they will actually reign reign as two kings together. Mashiach ben David being the main king, Mashiach ben Yosef being the other king.
Okay, so the reason why I just wanted to conclude to this is maybe in our next discussion we'll talk about this. Now, the Jews always talk about a Messiah, but now we know there are apparently two Messiahs, and one is apparently going to be killed. Why? Where did they get that from? Because Christians have always argued that there's one, because what the Jews will say, there's Jesus wasn't the Messiah because he didn't fulfill everything. Now we look within Judaism's text, and you have two Messiahs, one who apparently gets killed and one who then reigns for like however long, a very long time. His kingdom is said to last for eternity. Christians will argue that there was a Messiah who did die and he did rise and he will have a kingdom that is everlasting. But I find it very interesting that they have a concept of two Messiahs, and one who will die and one who will then come after him, Messiah ben David, who then will establish the kingdom, and we'll go into that the next time.
We'll talk about that next time.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
So
that's all from
yeah,
us.
just do a wrap up. So just in terms of our wrap up, and I'll leave Josh with the last word. So basically what I wanted to go through today is looking at the rabbinical text and saying they accuse us of misappropriating what is in the Tanakh. And when we go through certain verses, biblical verses, that we say are messianic, many of the times you will see that rabbis have said that this verse is about the Messiah. Even though rabbinical Jews today don't accept them, they may say it's about the nation of Israel or so forth. But the question remains, where did these people, who are supposed to be very learned people, how could they make such basic errors in saying this is about the Messiah when it was clearly about the nation of Israel? Why? And that's why I asked Josh, what is the criteria to determine whether a verse is messianic or not? Because these are not layman people. Jonathan ben Uzal attributing a verse to the Messiah is a very significant thing. He was not a layman. He was one of the, if not the greatest rabbis to have lived. And he makes such basic errors in his Targum translation. So the thing is this, they accuse us Christians of misappropriating the text, but we even see rabbis who have said the same thing. So why, are Christians accused of abusing the text when even rabbis have read the text and assumed the same sort of things that Christians have? So in conclusion, what I will say is this, those verses that you go through, if you accept they are messianic, there is no unequivocal way you cannot accept Christ as the Messiah, because Jesus even said these sort of things. He was the stone that was rejected and is now the cornerstone. So if you then take the Jewish perspective and say, well, these verses aren't messianic, then it will not lead you to Christ. But it still doesn't resolve the problem that some of these rabbis thought it was messianic. So that's why I asked the question, what is the criteria to determine if something is messianic, and why did so many rabbis make an error in concluding that these verses were about the Messiah.
Thank you for your conclusion. Just to conclude on my part. It seems that through this debate, Paperboy has not actually addressed any of the arguments that I made about the rabbinical text, which is why he moved so swiftly after I'd explained it all onto Isaiah 7:14. He didn't care about the arguments that I'd made, and he did not address a single one of them. My entire argument was that the Midrashim, these rabbinical texts that he is talking about, are all Agadic Midrashim, okay? Not intending to take verses literally, not intending to take verses in context, all intending to use verses out of context to illustrate points. And Paperboy failed to address this fundamental argument as to the nature of Medrash. And all of these rabbinical texts that he's quoting are indeed from Medrash, okay, or at least Midrashim quoted in the Talmud. And nobody would ever think that Zechariah 14:2 is talking about the Messiah. Nobody thinks that Isaiah 11:4 is talking about the kingdom of the Messiah coming back to him, okay, because nobody sees in the text the kingdom being taken away from him in the first place. Therefore, we see clearly that the rabbis were not quoting these verses in Isaiah 53 in context. They were using them to illustrate a point. And when we look at all the different verses, this is really the last point, when we look at all these verses where all these times when the rabbis quote Isaiah 53, they all have one common thread. They are all talking about righteous Jews, whether it's all the righteous Jews, or just Rabbi Akiva, or just Moses, or just Pinchas ben Elazar, or just the Messiah, or whoever else, right? Or Jeremiah, according to some. It's all talking about righteous Jews, and that's the point, because the servant of God is the one who serves God, the one who serves God with all his heart and with all his soul. And that is really the message of the Tanakh, not a message of a dying Messiah figure born of a virgin for no apparent reason, and part of God himself, who gets to cleanse you of all your sins without you doing any effort.
Thank you for your time, Josh. Until next time, man.
Thank you, Josh.
Yeah, and also you can subscribe to Josh's channel if you ever want to watch his discussions. Jews at the corner.
Yeah.
So, we're going on lockdown now, so hopefully at some point we'll kind of have another conversation. Maybe we'll focus on one or two texts rather than trying to jump through too many, because that's what I was trying to do, move the conversation forward very quickly. But hopefully we'll have another part 3 about the two messiahs within Judaism, because most people aren't aware that Jews are expecting two messiahs. So until next time.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you, guys. Thank you guys.